Comes audio son. You burn the swine when no why you shine. The tree of life, them no why you climb, cause them heart no kind. Comes I say them heart no kind. Buxton Massive, Kidaki, Red Hat.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money never, money never, money never, money never, money never, money. I know what you conniving. Money, money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. You can keep your conniving money. When you've been knocked for a bum, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money never, money never, money, money never, money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in to Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Kadaki Amsterdam, where the sun always shines. Guyanese Morning Time, the people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people call it Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We rise up early morning watching Tom's TV, where wisdom and knowledge, yes, it is the key. Exposing corruption over land and sea, where the wicked politicians they try to trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting aisle money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see, sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbor, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, with Jah as ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, fooling the people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. I say Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge knowledge run the front line. We go again. They got Breakford, Bork and Mark Benchcop, David Hines and Kadaki Amsterdam, Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London, Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow, Poor People Governor, Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson, Hampton Green and Winston Jordan. And yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese morning time, the people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese morning time. The people calling Guyanese morning time. Rhythm, Guyanese morning time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Wyndham Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice. And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
Hey fans, it's karaoke and oldies night this and every Thursday at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton. Dance to the magical songs of yesteryear by popular DJs and Camps Audio. Admission is free. Come out, let's make memories at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton North.
The fire burning red and a Joshua representing of a Camps Audio. Big up Kidaki, Buxton Massive. Hey Babylon boy, you going like in a like Camson. Red.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat Section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more. girl, how you do? Morning, morning. Are you morning? Morning, welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. How are you doing? How are you been? What up? How was your last night? How is your this morning? How was your yesterday? What happened yesterday that gave you hope? Did you earn? Were you given value for your labor? Fair value, I should say. Have you seen any indication that you will be given fair value for your labor? Or are you still in doubt that this corrupt and criminal cabal will do what is right for the citizens of this country? I got my doubts. Old people say that I cost some sucking egg. They ain't got none change that. The PPP is a set of egg suckers. So they ain't got none changing that. But the artful thing is, and that is why the artful thing is, not only is the PPP a set of ex-suckers, a set of thieves and criminals in government, but a lot of their supporters are a set of dunderheads, them dunce. Amanzo Walton disease said they're intellectually lazy. I taking it to an extreme. Some of them ain't even got intellect. Like this one named Budu. When you hear some people who claim to represent the PPP, who are supporters of the PPP talk in defense of the PPP, you want to know where these people brain there? Were they made upside down? Are they talking through their anuses? And using the brain for expiatory purposes? Y'all tell me. Because the amount of ignorance I hear some people talk ever so often defending the PPP, it's just aggravating. I just wake up good in the morning, full of energy, feeling nice and kind and loving, because that's the kind of person I am. Jovial and so on. And as soon as I come before this computer screen, people just change my mind. They don't change my mind, they just change my mood or my thought processes, and I just feel like cuss out. And by now, y'all know when I cussing is a good Buxton bagas, I cuss y'all gonna get. So I know what Budu come, as the boy said, Budu mother should have swallowed. We would not have had to deal with this imbecile early morning. What did the country get? Do not get, let me give you right language. I can put it on the screen for you. What did the country got when Apple was in power? Even if people smuggling gold out of the country, look what they're doing for the country. And PPP always have to take the country out of bankruptcy, always. So why you people want to go back in power for? To run it back in the gut again? You people have the worst track records. Ghana cannot afford another day with the PNC. You people are waste and racist people too. No, this imbecile can't even string a sentence together that make proper sense. Addressing us as you people. Well, let me tell you people who supporting the PPP that you people are a set of brainless, I can't call you human beings. Y'all are some brainless life forms. Even if people smuggling gold out of the country, look what they're doing for the country. That is the state of mind of the PPP leaders and their followers. It's okay to thief. It's okay to thief, yes. Even if people smuggling gold out of the country, look what they're doing to the country. They're robbing the country of revenue which can be used to improve the lives and livelihood of the citizens of this country. $50 million in a year, US dollars, is not no chicken feed money. It could buy enough beds at the public hospital so that pregnant mothers and other patients don't have to sleep on a bed. It could buy CT scan machinery, etc. Imaging machinery, even if you know what it means. I use imaging because it takes into consideration CT scan and X-ray and everything. It could buy enough imaging machinery, so that patients don't have to wait a long period of time to get CT scans and X-rays done, or run to the private institutions to pay an arm and a leg. It could fix them big holes that Edgel got around the country. So even if people smuggling gold out of the country, look what they are doing to the country. They're making the country poorer. They're pauperizing us. If 50 million US per year could go to the coffers of the nation, maybe, just maybe, the government can afford to say, let us not charge Guyanese time and a half in duties for them old vehicle that they're bringing in this country. Then Guyanese gotta go and buy a 40-year and a 10-year and a 15-year-old vehicle. For example, $600,000 to buy it in Japan and ship it to Guyana. And then when it reaches Guyana, they got to pay $800,000 in duties. Maybe if people stop smuggling gold out of the country and the government collects their rightful share of taxes, Guyanese wouldn't have to pay more than what they buy, more than what they paid for the vehicle in duties, especially as an old vehicle. Let me remind you, Guyana is a vehicle dump yard. Guyana is a vehicle dump yard. All the garbage from Japan and so on, they bring it and they use it for 2 money and then it dumped by the wayside. You're asking why they got so many accidents and so on in this country? Because Guyanese are driving old vehicles that have mechanical issues and fail on the road, vehicles that have had to be modified, front cut and back cut and side cut and top cut and all kind of cuts. So that people can acquire a vehicle which has become a necessity in this society and every society, quite frankly, because commuting is important. And so dunce like Edward Buru can't understand that because he is brainless like Ali and Jagdio and the rest of them. Then the Granger administration say, hey, we don't want such old vehicles in this country. You could bring vehicles by, I can't remember the age of the vehicle, maybe 10 years. And we don't want used tires in here. You must use new tires because they guarantee more safety. And they're longer lasting anyhow. The PPP friends and cronies who are dealers in garbage, like used tires and old vehicles, kick up a stink, and the PPP kick up a stink. And as soon as the PPP went back into office, what the PPP did? return Guyanese to settling for garbage tire, used tires, garbage vehicle, 14 and 50-year-old vehicle. Just maybe. If crasses like Edward Boodoo were to take a different look at what smuggling does to a country, you're going to understand differently. And we might get somewhere. Now, what bankruptcy is this dunderhead talking about? What bankruptcy? When the coalition left office, it didn't leave the coffers empty. It did not. Go and check the budget that the PPP presented immediately after going to office and see where it was financed from. But you don't know how to do that, Edward Boodoo. And they won't teach you to do that. Because if they teach you to do that, then you're going to get some sense. And you're going to come to recognize there was no bankruptcy when the coalition left government. But if you look at the depth of DEPTH of indebtedness, the depth of indebtedness of this nation right now, you will understand who is bankrupting this country. It all looks nice and shiny right now. But when you look down the line, when your children and their children will have to repay the debts that the PPP is creating for this country, then you're going to understand, Don St. Edward Boodoo, who is bankrupting this country. The PPP is using, I would say, future income from the oil industry to guarantee loans here, there, and everywhere. They're borrowing from every Tom, Dick, Harry, and John, even John and Harry, mother and mother-in-law and grandmama. And so the national debt is rising. But the dunce like Edward Boodoo can't see that. And it is not appearing so because what? Every 2 mornings they run to the Consolidated Fund, the Natural Resources Fund, and they withdraw hundreds of millions of US dollars. And they prop up this and they prop up that to make it look as though everything is nice and shiny. But take for an example, an allegation of sitting ministers of government having contracts with the government through their surrogates. It is alleged that Mustafa, for example, through his surrogates, including his child or children, allegedly 3 construction companies fleecing the Guyanese people in not getting value for money. I recently learned that the tender board or the National Procurement Commission, whatever they call it, is at wrath with the Ministry of Finance because there are several ministers of government who have hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars tied up. In the name of contracts which they are not executing. Let me explain it to you, Don St. Edward Boodoo and your friends. When one bids for a contract and wins it, there's something that's called mobilization. The mobilization amount is usually about 10%, at least 10% of the contract sum. The layman calls it an advance before the work starts. And so these criminal ministers and their friends, when they win the contracts, they collect the mobilization, which has now accumulated to hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, trillions perhaps. but they are not executing the contracts. And so because of that, the Ministry of Finance is now saying to the National Procurement Commission, or what the board as we call them, we are not in a position to release mobilization to contractors. Some contractors who are genuinely in need of the mobilization and who has a history of genuinely executing their contracts, they can't get mobilization. And so contracts are not being executed. That is what corruption does to this country at what Budu. So when you're talking about bankruptcy, you are intellectually bankrupt because you don't even understand an iota of what you're talking about. You don't understand none. They just give you a script. And even the script you can't produce properly or reproduce properly. Because look at this, maybe for standard writing that you got here. You people are a set of criminals and nothing will change. And so that is the mere reason, the only simple reason, if you ask me, why the Guyanese should get the PPP out of office. Look at the long list of PPP operatives whose names are being called every day in corruption. It is alleged that Mustafa and his son had their visas revoked. It is alleged that his son went to the US to buy a Range Rover and a yacht. Many of these people were piss poor 4 years ago. As poor people used to say, they ain't even got a pot to piss in 4 years ago. But today they could go and buy a yacht and Range Rover. And this jackass, Edward Budu, talking about who bankrupting country. Guyana has been known as the most corrupt country in this hemisphere. Every time the PPP takes power, it takes that title. Every time the PPP takes power, it takes that title. But like I said, many of the supporters of the PPP, they're not only intellectually lazy, they're intellectually bankrupt, they're brainless. I remember when we were going to school and somebody body and say, you got time with you, man, that pass through one is and got through the other. We say yes. Because nothing is in the middle there to stop it. There's the PPP people there. They got nothing in the middle there. Many of them are comatose. And so they come to these programs in the mornings to talk stupidness. And I come to this program in the mornings to address them and their stupidness. And you know what has been the helpful thing? When I don't address them and their ancestors, I just block them. Edward Budu, good riddance of bad garbage. Tata, crass. Morning, are you morning? It's 7 hours 57. It's 3 minutes to the 8 o'clock on the 16th day of July in the year 2024. I wonder which PPP representative is as fluent as I am. What are they? I wonder which one from Efanali right down to Jagdio to right down to Ravina. Which one are so fluent? I wonder which one of them could code switch like I do. You have to be competent. You got to be able to manage your business, handle your business. I don't come here early morning to harass people. I got the plaster so you are sore. Morning, are you morning? I tell you all, you almost don't to talk. Don't stay quiet. Akwesi and Annie, why you always want to take me down these roads? You're the timekeeper now? Yeah? In the mood, you know, you could get a good boxing bag that said using. You're the timekeeper? Listen. Put your money where your mouth there. Look the cash up there. $ KAMS TV. Put your money where your mouth there. If you ain't putting your money where your mouth there, don't tell me nothing but time, man. You understand what I said? Good. Let's proceed with this program. Let's proceed with regular programming. I tell you all already, you must learn to speak up. They say, oh, closed mouths don't get fed. Closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't talk up, nobody knows where you're hurting. Nobody will attend to your hurts. Okay? Thank you to the viewer yesterday, whoever the viewer is. Cash App again, let me remind you, Akwesi and Annie is $ KAMS TV. If you don't want the Cash App, I can give you the Zelle. Let me put it up for you. Because I say who pays the piper calls the tune, but let me tell you something. Nobody ain't calling me tune. You could pay the piper, but don't call this tune. Good. The Zelle is 862-373-5187 in the name of Yoet Downer. 862-373-5187 Yoet Downer. That's my business voice. Do I sound like an executive? Hey, Yaga. What are those? Somebody said the shades dark. Like can't penetrate the shades. Let's stop. The business attack, we talk. I was saying thank you to the viewer who reached out to the people at BUXTONIAN and told them, hey, y'all call Mr. Amsterdam, he don't bluff. If he say you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And when he say you're going to do it, you're going to do it. So you always call it quick. Good. Approximately 45 minutes or an hour, once I got off of the program yesterday. I don't remember the official title, but the customer complaints officer, let me call it that, if that's the correct thing, reached out to me. And he said that someone who was viewing the program heard my quote-unquote instructions, and it was relayed to him, and he was reaching out to me to find out what the issue was. Of course, I related the issue, which I will not relate to you, since there has been an undertaking to right the wrong. And when I say right the wrong, my hope is that the wrong will be righted for all customers of Banks DIH, and not only Mr. Kidaki Amsterdam. You see, big companies got a way of addressing the issues of the people who make nice. But then the people who don't make nice suffer in their silence. We don't want that to happen. Right? So I'm expecting recompense. I'm expecting the company to make efforts to right the wrongs identified, and so that we can be happy as Guyanese, proud to continue to support our local beverage giant, feeling safe consuming the products. So I'll be watching and I'll be waiting. And I'm telling y'all again, closed mouths don't get fed. Closed mouths don't get fed. if you don't open your mouth to speak about what bothers you, nobody will know. And nobody will make an effort to fix it. It's not a small thing. Don't think it as a small thing. Understand that? Because it is small things which accumulate and become big things. And then when they're too big, they're gigantic, they're enormous, they're ginormous. It becomes too difficult a task to get them fixed. If it aggravates you as a little thing, imagine what will happen when it gets larger. Start addressing the issues when they are yet small. If from the word go, when Guyanese first heard of the sanctions against the Mohammeds and May Thomas, Guyanese are taken to the streets in an anti-corruption march. Maybe, just maybe, all of those criminals and their friends that are sitting in government would have taken a step back and say, hey, this thing looks dangerous. Don't let us go down that road anymore. Are you hearing me? Don't wait until the thing, till the thing gets too big and then you can't manage it. And it strangle you and kill you. You know what I'm talking about? Guyanese walking around daily with a goatee around them named PPP. And the goatee gets so big and heavy that they're frightened to cut it. Because they believe it's going to do harm to them if they cut it. I saw somebody this morning talking about if you assemble in front of Claudette Singh's home to do a candlelight vigil, the PPP will call it an unlawful assembly. Who cares what the PPP calls it? Who cares what the PPP calls it? What I care about is whether or not you're prepared to stand your ground. And I say yesterday, I don't come in with your doubt mouth behavior. Rastaman said fire upon the doubt mouth. Come in with positive energies. Be like the little engine. I know I can. I know I can. I know I can. We can bring the PPP to their knees by lawful protest. We need guns. We don't have to have guns. We don't have to have a violent revolution. We don't have to shed an ounce of blood. Leave that to the state. Let the state use their coercive arms, the police and the Guyanese Defense Force and their goons in the many security paramilitary groups that they got around this country. Let them use those and shed our blood if they dare to. We don't have to shed an ounce of blood to bring these people to their knees. What we have to do is demand the bedrock of our democracy. Demand a clean voters list, demand biometrics. And anybody who stands in the way of those things, let us give them sleepless nights and restless days. Sleepless nights and restless days. The police usually say they can't do nothing to a man who in a private vehicle play music loud. Is that noise nuisance? Because noise nuisance, you have to be at a, what is the word? Statutory position. The noise has to be consistent. And so who say you gotta be in one place making noise all the time to keep people awake? A car could be driving around the area, making a set of noise like they do on Sheriff Street, because the police can't do anything about it on Sheriff Street with Lisa's bar and so on and so forth. So why can't we have vehicles just driving through these areas where these criminals live and just ensure that they don't sleep at night? Why can't we? I'm saying again, we have to find novel ways of protest. Like a casual window shopping day down Regent Street. The last time I said it, they arrested me. They arrested me for cybercrime. Y'all remember? It was in the same week when I said we need to have a window shopping day down Regent Street. And maybe I said it one time too many, and they decided, because their business friends and cronies call them and say, yeah, they what the man talking about? Coming down Regent Street. I will get him to stop it. And they send the doormats, the house slaves, the political polices. Get that word, polices. The political police. The ton squads to arrest Mr. Amsterdam for cybercrime. If I'm willing to take all the pressures that they're bringing on me, and I ain't shutting them out, what happened to y'all, man? Yeah? Answer me. Y'all talk to me. Are you ready to go window shopping? Y'all inbox me 6225933. If I see enough persons willing to go window shopping, I'll arrange it. Are you ready to go candlelight parading? If you are ready, inbox me. Let me go. I didn't ask you anything about Norton. Why y'all always bringing up Norton? We're talking about us. This Rasta and the Naibingi squad. We're wrong with y'all. Where y'all talking about Norton for? Who got time with Norton? According to Dr. HINDS, he told me that in the days of Walter Rodney used to say, I don't judge people. Every man knows his ability, his capacity. Let every man work according to his capacity. If a man could lift a pong, he lift a pong. He pong and contribute to the struggle in some way or other. If not too big for protest, left Norton. Those of us who have the energy for protest, let us do the thing. So what y'all want me to do? We gonna go window shopping a day? Inbox me and tell me if the numbers right, we gonna go window shopping. Y'all want to do candlelight vigil? If the numbers right, we gonna go candlelighting. How many of you are ready to go in front of GCOM next Tuesday? Inbox me. I'm going in front of GCOM with 10 persons. I respect the energies of those 10 persons and 12 persons. They've been there long and consistent. Big up Rwanda and the rest. Take note. I took the first step in front of GCOM. Call it a step of faith. Rwanda was there when I took this step. Emily Durant was there when I took this step. And a number of other people were there when I took this step. Many of those people are still out there. So the seed was planted. I planted the seed. Let us watch it grow now. Come, it's time for regeneration. It's time for replanting. Come, who ready? Who ready? I could do Tuesday next. All those of you who are ready to come with me on Tuesday, hit me up. Let me know. If the number's big enough for going. Otherwise, I ain't going. I'm being very frank. I don't want to be no general without an army. You have proved to me that I got an army. Let's go. Let's go. I have to go to I have to go to court on the 23rd. But you think they're going to stand in the way of me going in front of GCOM? Oh, shoot. Next Tuesday is the 23rd. I hope not. But hey, yes, next Tuesday is the 23rd. But hear me? After court, because I think it's a morning case, we're going in front of GCOM if the numbers are large enough. Because the fact is, if elections are going to be called close to the end of the year, and I say close to the end of the year because it can be before year end or shortly after year end, we have to start making stringent demands. We got to up the ante to get what we want. We can't wait till late. That's why I started it years ago. Hit me up. We got 3 options. We could window shop, we could candlelight, and we could GCOM. Then champagne, girl, I tell you something. The thing with me is, I don't care what they do, you know. They can't break me. And this is what you have to understand. And that is why protests should not have leaders. Protests should have activists and protesters or whatever you want to call it. Because when they remove one person from the scene, the others must be adamant enough to stay there and continue to chant the same chants. Are you understanding me? So if I got Mr. Amsterdam, say that we go in front of GCOM next Tuesday. If I got Mr. Amsterdam in court all day, there must still be the presence of all those persons who would have been with Mr. Amsterdam in front of GCOM. In front of GCOM. So don't worry if they're going to keep me in court all day. What I am concerned about is who will be in front of GCOM on Tuesday. With or without Mr. Amsterdam, who will be in front of GCOM on Tuesday? I'm saying let's build the numbers. Let us build the numbers. Let us build the numbers. As soon as I out of court, I'm going to be in front of GCOM. But you got to show me the numbers, like I say. It's not one man show. Or, you want to run a stamp set on there? Come in front of the court. Citizens have a right to protest any part of the country to say that they are dissatisfied with what is happening in front of the country. The judiciary has a right to uphold the laws of the country. And so when you have corrupt officials, demands can be made that they be drawn before the courts for trial for their corruption. So if you want protest in front of GCOM, protest in front of the court. If you want to go in front of the court, let me do a candlelight vigil. If you want to do candlelight vigil, let me go window shopping. There's so many options. There got some people who might prefer GCOM, go to GCOM. There got some people who might prefer the court, go to the court. There got some people who might prefer Regent Street, go Regent Street. And there got some people who like the nightlife, do candlelight. Don't let the authorities dictate how you struggle, because if they could dictate you struggle, it means they're in charge. If they could dictate how you struggle, they're in charge. Show them that they don't have control of what's going to happen in this country. Do like the Gen Zs in Kenya. Yesterday they say, I like that, but Africa backward and this and that. Look at what the Gen Zs have done in Kenya. They make Ruto dismiss his entire cabinet. They make Ruto withdraw the particular financial bill that was going to bring hardship on the people of Kenya. You know what was they tell Ruto? Get rid of the IMF from this country. Get rid of the IMF and I think IDB from this country. Get them out. It's a joke. Speak for yourself. No, Dr. Hines said, according to you, because I didn't hear it, according to you, it's a joke. Dr. Hines said he is backing Niger. Never said that WPA is backing Niger. Speak for yourself. When the WPA is ready to say who it is backing, it will make that announcement in the name of the WPA. Until you hear Dr. Hines say the WPA is backing Nigeria or the WPA is backing Arbery, allow Dr. Hines to, it's freedom of speech because he's entitled to it. Understand that? Good picnic. We have to take a stand. We have to set the pace. You know them man in the street that says set the pace. So I was telling you about the Gen Zs in Kenya. They say, hey, we ain't got time with you, Ruto. Get rid of the cabinet to save yourself. Blink. Cabinet gone. Hey, the bill that you passed in the National Assembly, I'm in favor of it. Blink. The bill gone. What I say now? We don't want to see the IMF. They say Bonham described them as something to do with international model and something else. We don't want to see the IMF. They're part of the oppression. They must leave. That is the power of the people. Gaining at Gen Zs, gaining at a whole set of black, well, no, I want to say black, gaining at a whole set of young people in University of Guyana campus and Teen campus and Government Technical Institute and GITC and in school and all of that. Gaining agencies, yeah. Can they take inspiration? Or they don't pay enough attention? Is there no inspiration around for them? I want to pelt a stone this morning, but boy, I want to pelt a stone this morning. I'm going to pelt a stone, you know. I want to pelt a stone this morning. I really want to pelt a stone this morning. Young people in the churches, because somebody young people them in the dance hall, but young people are not in the churches. Do we have any religious leaders in politics, mainstream politics that is? Yeah, can inspire the young people. Let me phrase the statement. Do we have any young religious leader or leaders in mainstream politics? Can't you inspire the young people? Don't you have the ear of the young people? Come on, man. We could do better. I used to sit when I was at the University of Guyana. In fact, every educational institution I was in, they will tell you. Politics was always a part of my day. Politics was always a part of my day in any educational institution. Any classroom you find me in, check any of my classmates and they can tell you. Politics was always a part of the day. I made good friends and great enemies in classrooms discussing politics. You mean we don't do these things in classrooms anymore? There is no awareness? Yeah, give me a chance. I remember as I'm talking, I wonder where this one, the big at Boston. That's what we used to call it. Boston! I can't remember the man's first name. But the man was a part of the Black Cross Police. He and I went to Kitchener together. And once Boston came into the classroom, Boston knew that he coming under attack from this BUXTONIAN because I would tell him to his face. There are a set of murderers and thieves, and you have disrespecting the Guyanese people, you have a set of advantage takers. I wonder where Boston. I want to believe Boston is one of them that they run out the country when things get hard. Good. I went to university again and there are a couple of police in the class and I used to give them hell too. Not because I don't like police, but I don't like advantage takers. You mean to tell me there ain't nobody who could inspire the young people on and off of campus to take an example from what is happening in Kenya? Closed mouths don't get fed. They are allowed to talk. It is 25 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour on the 16th day of July in the year 2024. I am your host, Kiraki Amsterdam. Welcome to the Guyanese Morning Time. The cash app is $KAMSTV, especially Akwesi Anani, the man who wants to be the timekeeper for this program. Lead by example. Good. When I see your name, I'm going to call it. Yeah. Yes, here we go. I am about to tell you, share some information with you. G-Com paying for that, but it's my civic duty. It's my civic duty. Right? And as I'm talking about that, Jonan Downer, send me a real photograph, man. I'm gonna tell him where I want it. I know if it's you there in the DP, send me true and what they say, true and correct image of yourself. Yeah. Ooh, it's Jonan Downer birthday. Jonan, happy birthday, y'all. How you do? Jonan Downer, happy birthday, girl. How you do? Yeah, I know yesterday, Yesterday was Robin Simon birthday, you know. Morning, Robin, happy birthday. It was yesterday or the day before today. As I said, me no make you. Happy birthday to all those of you who are celebrating your birthday anniversaries today and tomorrow and the rest of the month. Your crabs are marching. Happy marching. Good. I wish you all the best. I wish you success, long life, good health, and above everything else, the Creator's richest blessings. Good. I was about to tell you now. I'm sharing some information with you about GCOM. Now, the claims and objections period on the 2nd of July. Right? The claims and objection period started on the 2nd of July. I'm not too sure. I can't tell you for a fact when it is going to end, but my encouragement usually is to get it done earlier rather than later. Right? If you do it earlier rather than later, then there is no rush, as old people say, like hot needle burning thread. So it started on the 2nd. It means that it is what, 14 days in, 2 weeks have been completed as of today, perhaps the 16th. Maybe by the end of the month, they will close it and go to another phase of something. So you have, I would say, another 14 days perhaps to get your claims and objections done. Now, what is claims and objections really? The claims and objection period is that period when you can go and you can make minor and major, right? Minor and major changes. Now, want to see who's Joan? Where's that, Joan? I should show them you. Or it's for my eyes only. Yes, we're talking. Where you can go and make minor and major changes. In that, if you have a claim, let's say your date of birth is wrong on your ID card, you can go and have that change. If you want to change your address, you can go and have that change. In some instances, if they got you looking like an alien and you're not an alien, you can go and have your photograph redone and stuff like that. Good? Claims. Objections. If you know that Harilal Banduram died 10 years ago and he's still on the voters list, you can go and make a claim that, hey, this is a dead man, you got to get him off the voters list. But it's not done that easily. You have to get the... I'm understanding that the objections phase ends July 22nd. Oh, shoot, and claims ended yesterday. So we're talking about, what I said, $1 short and a day late. But I'm sure they will reopen these things. I'm sure they will have to, especially if the demands are high. And so if the demands are high, they will have to reopen it. So if you got claims, just turn up for make claims. And you got objections, turn up for make objections. They're going to tell you, but we close off. But they're going to take a note. And so eventually they're going to report to the higher ups. You know the one, the people who own that the CEO. And the commission will be forced or faced with making a decision whether to extend the period or not. Right? So don't lose hope if you didn't catch it. But ensure you catch it the next time around. Good. So objections. Toleram Banduram dead 10 years ago, but he's still on the voters list. You see it on the preliminary list of electors, the PLE. Because they have published the PLEs, hopefully they're supposed to be around the places that maybe what used to be the usual polling stations and so on. So the preliminary list of electors are posted around the place. Check them. You and your neighborhood, you know. Check and see all the dead people on them, for example. And if you don't have the resources or the time or the know-how to object to those dead people on the list, send information to your party. Right? Send the information to your party. And your party then has a responsibility of acting, because the party can actually send in a whole long list of objections to GCOM and say, these are the things that we found not to be right and we would like to have them fixed. Right? But there has to be supporting documents. You can't get no dead man off the voters list unless you present his death certificate. Right? Unless you present his death certificate, he ain't coming off no list. And so that is the burden. Let me call it the burden of proof. That is a burden that they put on the citizens. The citizens can't just go and make an objection that Banduram Toleram did 10 years ago and he shouldn't be on the list, and made GCOM investigate that. GCOM is investigating nothing unless you present the evidence. Now, if I'm just a village and I know Banduram Toleram died 10 years ago, That doesn't mean that I have access to his death certificate. That doesn't mean that I can apply for his death certificate and get a copy. So where am I going to get the evidence? Can I present a photograph of his funeral or a live video? Because nowadays it's live. I'm sure the laws have not been changed to allow you to present a live of the funeral of Bandiram Tularam to get him off of the voters list. So as I usually say, to get the dead off of the voters list is like getting a camel to pass through the needle of an eye. Because here what they put on you, if you want to get Bandiram Tularam off the voters list because he has died, you got to provide the evidence. And that evidence in this instance is his death certificate. And knowing the PPP and their friends, and even the PNC and their friends, any supporter of any political party, they're not going to give you any information to get any possible dead supporter off the list. Because in these days of corrupted elections, they will calculate by sometimes you can get for user dead man for another vote. The PPP did a lot of that in the 2020 elections. I sat in those recount stations and I saw the evidence of that. We know that they're dead. We perhaps weren't able to get them off of the list because we didn't get the death certificates and so on. But we see that the dead voted. But I'm encouraging you, check the preliminary list of electors in your area. Identify the anomalies, all the dead people. Identify the names of people that they say live in your area that don't live in your area, because that too is possible, because they're taking a lot of the Venezuelans and they're putting them in voting districts. And you people who live in those districts will know whether or not these people exist there. Start doing your work. Let us start laying the foundation to get this corrupt and criminal cabal out of government through elections, free, fair, and credible elections. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. And let's give Akwesi and Nani a big up. The man put his money where he mouth there. Where you money there now? Yeah. And Nani put his money where he mouth there. Where you money there? I ask y'all if you want to see the birthday girl for today. Joanne, you want to see a girl? Or this is our secret. Call it live. Good morning. Call it live. Good morning. Caller, you're live. Good morning. This one is ready for us. 6225933 is the number to call. You are tuned to the Guyanese morning time. It is 8:36 on the 16th day of July in the year 2024. Caller,
hello, good morning.
You're live. Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loudly and clearly.
Okay, good morning to you and all my black brothers and sisters in Guyana. I missed Mr. David's show last night, but I read the comments just now. Let's not God say the same. It not surprised me what Mr. David said. Why?
Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon.
Yes.
Stop.
Yes.
I constantly say to viewers, right?
Yes.
You must take people's comments in context. If you did not hear Dr. Hines, and you don't know the context in which you are speaking, and you're just hearing what this person is saying, because I know what this person says is contradictory and controversial, be careful of your comments. You might be wrong.
Okay, all right. But let me move on to something else.
Right ahead. Morning, neighbor. Morning. He's in trouble. What do you like, eh? Good. You like the PPP? Morning, are you morning? Some of y'all get to see me tall for the first time, no? People don't generally see me tall, but y'all see me tall this time. Morning. Oh, look, I look like a Yasho. Hola, doy. Morning, I am morning. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. It is 7 hours 23 on the 17th day of July in the year 2024. It is still my birth month and I'm still celebrating. Yeah, today is Wednesday. Today is wine day. Good. Today I intend to wine and dine. Oh, y'all do. Have a good day. How was y'all yesterday? How was y'all last night? Rested well? What happened yesterday that gave you hope in this dear land of ours? What happened that gave you hope in this dear land of ours? Well, I see a lot of people displaying their hopelessness. I don't know if you saw it, but I saw it. A lot of people were displaying their hopelessness. Let me gossip a little bit. Yeah, I like a good gossip, you know. It's Facebook, yeah, they're on Facebook. Everybody else gossip on Facebook. So we start a little gossip. It is rumored that yesterday was Hincks' last parade. Or Hincks' last parade is fast approaching. They say with all of the scandals that have been out in the Ghana police force and so on, Clifton Hincks will be off soon, permanently. As a matter of fact, somebody told me, this week is gonna be my last week. They're keeping it just to these this promotion parade. After this promotion parade, then you go for channel. Good. Let's watch and see. Let's watch and see. And I see Travis Chase is reporting that an imam, is that the word? An imam, Muslim priest, an imam, was pulled in by the FBI or the federal authorities at the United States in the US and questioned for more than 4 hours. And then his visa was unceremoniously revoked and he was placed on the next plane back to Guyana. Like I said, when the May Toussaint, Mohammed's and others story broke, I said that's the house of falling cards. And so the cards are continuing to fall. But one of the things they got, and I mean, people just got to protect themselves. Everybody in callous like Mr. Amsterdam, because some people believe that I'm very callous. And I know I'm to the contrary, I'm not very callous. One of the weaknesses I think in this society is that journalists, news reporters, influencers, whatever you call yourself, whatever you want to call them, and so on, they tread a very thin line. In most instances, they put information out there and you now got to guess. Who could this imam be? Who is this imam? Right? There are lots of imam in this society, I think, that behave questionably. And so now they got me searching my head to find out who is this imam. Because I know the husband of the PPP is a DPP. It's supposedly an imam. I know the one that sat at the ERC and was very blatant in his racism and his racist exhortations. It's supposedly an imam. And so they got a whole list of people. So we got wonder who is this imam? If any of you knows who you are, perhaps could let me know. Because the public has a right to know. Yeah, I know the criminals among you. Right? Robson Ben seems to know the criminals among us. He said that the police got an attitude of left or right. He berated them yesterday at the opening of the conference. He stopped short of calling them corrupt. But like I usually say, read between the lines and not always on top of the line. But he made some very important interesting statements, I should say, that I would want to share with you as the program goes on. And definitely Dr. Hines and I, we're going to be talking about some of those things. Right? And so since it's 7:28, let me invite the doctor. Dr. Hines, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Morning to you. How you doing?
All right.
Well, a lot of revelations are continuing to hit us about people being dragged in by the FBI and the federal authorities, let me say that, and interviewed and so on and so forth, and visas revoked and things. From where you're standing, is it a norm? Let me say across the Caribbean or even the wider world, that when functionaries of the government are faced with such situations, uh, the information remains, as I would say, private and secret. In that the government doesn't make a statement, the affected government functionary does make a statement so that the society is aware. Is it a norm?
Yes. No government incriminates itself. To expect that the government will incriminate itself is to be naive. The society has a right to know, and it is the role of the media to inform the society. The government is not going to incriminate itself.
And so when the society becomes aware by what I would say hints from the media, is it not the onus of the government? Doesn't the government have a responsibility to address these issues to the nation?
The government has
give assurances, perhaps, as to how they intend to deal with it?
The government has a responsibility, but I mean, politics 101. What is the nature of government? Government is a repository of power. And power concedes nothing without a demand. So said Frederick Douglass more than 150 years ago.
And so, in short, to get this government to even acknowledge what is happening and perhaps bring the nation up to speed with what is happening, with whatever spin they want to put on it, people have to make demands. The citizens have to make demands. Are you suggesting that people should be taking to the streets and demanding?
No. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm not suggesting anything. I mean, I'm surprised that you're even asking me about whether people should take to the street, because you know what my answer is going to be. I am not suggesting anything. I am merely saying that to expect a government that is being suspected of involving in corruption to come out and say we are corrupt is naive. The society, through its own motions, will determine when and how the government reacts. Now, yesterday, Minister Ben at the symposium basically said what we have always known and what the government has always refused to say, and that is that corruption is very rife in the police force. All right? Now, why is the government saying that? The government is saying that because corruption in high places is now in the open. The revelations by the Americans about the Mohammeds and so on, as you said in your opening, has opened a can of worms. It is now forcing the government to respond. So what Mr. Ben did was to go for a low-hanging fruit, and that is the police. And what he did is to put all of the blame on the police, and you don't expect the government to do otherwise. And what we have to do, what you have to do, what I have to do, is to inform and educate our people about the connection between corruption in the police force and the culture of corruption in the country. That the corruption in the police force is not something that is germane to the police force, that is unique to the police force, that is something that is disconnected from what happens in public institutions in general. There has been a culture of corruption by the PPP whenever it's in government. And the corruption in the police force is a consequence of that culture of corruption that starts high up. And what the police, the ordinary police who is shaking down people, for a couple $1,000, is really a consequence of that culture. What Minister Ben has done is what governments do. Whenever they're forced to admit things, they throw the blame on lower functionaries. They disassociate the government from what is happening. And that responsibility of connecting the dots is the responsibility of political analysts, the media, political activists, etc., etc. No government is going to come and say we are corrupt, and no government is going to admit to any corruption whatsoever, unless they are forced to. And this government is forced now to confront corruption, but the way they're doing it, as I said, is to go for some low-hanging fruits. You listen to Vice President Jagdeo, he says, look, there is corruption in procurement. He can't say, with all the revelations, he can't, but he said 95% of the procurement is above board. So he's saying there's corruption, but it's only 5%. Now that the government has to defend itself. To expect a government is going to come out and admit guilt is really not understanding how politics work. No, governments don't admit guilt. You force governments to admit that there is a problem, and they will admit there is a problem, but they will spin it that it is not their problem. They are not part of the problem, and you have to continue to do the work. And then here is where the justice system comes in.
Let me quote from a report on Ben's presentation at the conference. This to me is what many would say is an admission of failure. He further stated that if the requests are not followed, or they're delayed, or they are undermined, or there is a disregard for the things we want you to do, it means we have a significant problem. And I am saying here clearly, there is a significant problem. So in short, Ben is saying that the government has been giving the police certain instructions, which they apparently have not been carrying out, and therefore there is a significant problem. The police has not become a significant problem. You think there is accuracy in that, or is it that the minister is failing at his job?
Look, no, and maybe, but I don't come at things from that angle. What is the role of the police under the PPP? How has the PPP treated with the police force? The police force is part of a security apparatus that is dominated by people of African descent. The police force has always been a problem for the PPP. Dr. Jagan, between 1957 and 64, said we are in government, we are in office, but we are not in power. That is, he was admitting that they were in political office, but they didn't control the arms of the state that matters. So they didn't control the public service, which is an important arm of the state. It is the public servants that make government work. They didn't control the army and the police, which are the coercive arm of the state. And so when the PPP came back to power, they vowed to do something about that. And the way they, as we now know, the way they went about controlling the public service was to weaken the public service union, all right? And so now they basically have control of the public service. And the way they went about the coercive arm of the state, the police, the army, and other military and paramilitary institutions, was to give them a free rein to engage in things like corruption in exchange for their blind support of the government against its political opponents. In other words, in exchange for their use of the police as a political tool against their opponents. They turned a blind eye to things that have always been part of police culture. Taking bribe is not a new thing in the police force. That is there in this police force, in all police forces across the world. The uniqueness of our situation is that in exchange for corruption to be a run-of-the-mill thing, the police surrendered themselves to become the political tool of the PPP. We want to make that very, very clear, because that is the story here. The story is not police corruption. Police corruption is normative in police forces. It is police corruption that has gone out of control because the government, which is supposed to ensure and put a cap on police corruption, has decided in exchange for runaway corruption, once you decide to be the political tool for our government, we are prepared to let corruption go haywire. So the news here, the issue here is not the corruption, not police corruption. Police corruption really is, like I said, it's normative in police forces. And in this case, is a consequence of a deal that is made between the leadership of the police force and the political directorate in exchange for us allowing you to, wear gold, according to Minister Ben, to wear gold, to talk to people anyhow, to take bribes. In exchange for that, we just want you to be our political tool. And Ben didn't wake up yesterday and discover those things that he said. That he's only enumerating those things because the thing is now the culture of corruption involving the government, the use of the government as part of corruption, as part of criminalization, is now out in the open. So he's now saying this thing as though he discovered them yesterday. No, these things have been there. He was aware of them and so on. I mean, you look at the way police take bribes. They don't hide to take bribes. They stop a man and say, you got to give me 4,000. You got to give me 5,000. They don't hide because they know there are no official consequences for what they do. And so I think we ought to focus on the right story. The story is not the corruption in the police force. The story is the culture of corruption that has been enabled, perpetrated, encouraged by this government, because the government is interested in the public service, the police force, the army. They are interested in their loyalty. That is, to use them as political tools. So therefore, the corruption become a consequence of that deal is an unwritten deal. And I think that is the story.
I certainly agree that the corruption in the police force and in other sections of the society, they say, is being nurtured, is being protected, is being allowed by the current administration. Like you said, it's quid pro quo. You scratch me back, I scratch you. Hand wash and make and come clean. But even in that presentation, Dr. Hinds, I find what I want to call a slight. I want to read the exact quote, and so you can help us to understand it. And let me see if my interpretation is the same. Quote, we have abandoned foot patrols. We have abandoned the dogs walking through the Starbucks market area. If I walk through the front gate, I can get an instant high, while people are fencing things right at the Starbucks market gate. If you don't look like me, you could be robbed, assaulted, and even killed in that environment, around Starbucks market in that general environment, Wolfsman remarked. You hear a hint there of caste and class, ethnicity, racism. if you don't look like me, if you walk through that if you don't look like me, you could be robbed, assaulted, and even killed in that environment. I mean, you're not in a man's head, but what could it be
Very
influenced?
to me, if you don't look like me, meaning if you don't look like if you don't look like me as a big shot, as a government minister, but that's not what I think he means. He means that if you're not African, if you're Indian, if you're Amerindian, you are more likely than not to be robbed. And so I'm playing into the old stereotype of black criminals robbing Indian people. That's what he's doing there, I think. Like I said, one can read it to mean that if you don't look like me, meaning if you don't look like a big shot like me, and think. But people, it's big shot people. If you eventually in that area and you look like a big shot, you
Yes,
will
you
get
can get
robbed,
robbed.
right, right. So he obviously must be alluding to the ethnic thing.
And coming from a minister of government, should we ask the ERC to investigate there, find out what really Ben is saying?
Yes, we should ask the ERC. The ERC should ask itself, because nobody will have to ask the ERC if I make a statement like that, or you make a statement like that.
Very well. Like you rightly said, the House of Falling Cards, all of these revelations are happening. Is that fodder for fire for the opposition?
I don't want to go there, because I don't think that's how politics work. You know, I said on this program more than once, I'm sure, I've said it on my own program, that about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years, Brother Yussi Kwayana called me out of the blues. And he said in his own quiet, analytical way, he said, David, these people are going to choke. They're biting off too much. They are going to choke. And I have repeated that on this program, because it changed my own attitude. Because like all of us who are in this thing on a day-to-day basis, we tend to be impatient. You know, we want boots on the ground tomorrow. We want the opposition to do this. We want the government to fall tomorrow, and so forth. And what that statement by Kwayana reinforced in me, because I was always of that disposition, that look, for all intents and purposes, this is not a today, tomorrow story. We have to see this thing through. I was at pains a year ago, 2 years ago, to explain what happens when you have regime change. When you have regime change, what you have is a strong, unaccountable government, and a very weakened and opposition that is driven by fear because of the force and the way in which the government wields force. And that reality has to play itself out. And what we in the opposition, we who are now what they call social media influencers, have to do, is that we have to engage in a different kind of politics. And that is the politics of mobilization, the politics of education, the politics of pushing the government to the point that it chokes. Because that's what Kwayana was saying. You know, they're biting off too much and they will choke. And so what you have to do is to push it more in the mouth, let it bite off more and choke. And I think that is what I have been trying to get our people to adopt our politics to. And in many regards, we have pushed the meat so much in the mouth that they're choking every day. What you're calling revelations is really the government choking, right? The opposition is weak and in disarray. They're not going to come at you as hard as they would normally do. So you believe you have the field to yourself. And so you're biting them off more, because you're not accountable to anybody. The Americans put you, so in your head, the Americans are not going to rock your boat because you're giving Exxon everything. The opposition, they are in disarray. You know, in Parliament, you know, they don't have a majority, so they can't make anything done. You have buku money, plenty money. You can buy people silence and so on. So you as happen with people with power, you bite more and you bite more and you bite more and you choke. And as I have been saying, when I say on my program every day, I am putting our people in a fighting mode. And what I mean is put our people in mode where we push it down the throat more, let it choke. And they've begun to choke. And what I'm saying care less. The job of the media is to give us the information. And the job of political activists is to take that information and use it as political analysis. You see, I don't think our job is information, per se. That's the media. When we get the information, we then have to put it in perspective. We have to put it to attempt to do what I'm attempting to do this morning with information. And to say, here's the story. The story is not Ben. That's the media. The Rare Wave has a right to say what Ben said. Chronicle or whoever has a right to say what Ben said. But I don't want to repeat what they tell me. I am taking what they tell me and put it in political perspective to expose the government and to strengthen our people. That is why I know I frustrate you sometimes when I don't pay much attention to the information. Because the information is out there. It is the analysis, what you do with that information. I said that information by Ben is an admission of the culture of corruption. What he is trying to do is to isolate it to the police force. What I have to do and you have to do is to say, oh, no. This culture of corruption is really at the highest level, at the level of the state. And the police at the bottom are really just acting as a consequence of that culture. So your thing about with the opposition, I think that's not the, I don't think that should be the issue. That should be the question. The question here is continue to do what we are doing, continue to make them choke. And the more they choke, the more they vomit. And the more they vomit, the more we are able to say to our people, look, what we have been talking about is not fiction. When people have been yelling at us and telling us we have to present data, the data is being presented now. What better data than the minister himself admitting that there is corruption? What data than the Americans saying, look, business people are involved in this ring of corruption. It involves a permanent. That's the data that the PPP has been saying. Give us the evidence. But the evidence is now coming out. Ben has given us the evidence. And that is why I'm saying sometimes on the opposition side, we are not patient enough. Now I understand our supporters being impatient because they got to take the beating on their heads every day. So when the man in the street or the person on this program, is impatient, I understand that. But I'm saying we, the activists, have to understand politics so that we do not also become victims of impatience. Because politics is not just a short distance running, it's also long distance running. And often we want to get to the table, and the time the gun go off, pow, we want to end the race quickly. No, it's both short term and medium and long term. And we have to, in a sense, temper our people who are understandably impatient. But when we become impatient too, then we are not doing our people a good service because, as Brother Guyanese said, government, when it bites off too much, it will choke. Because a government is not somebody selling plantain chip at the corner of the road. A government is an overarching institution. And ultimately, the very laws of the government is going to catch up with the government. That's why we call it the rule of law. The government is not ruling by law, but that doesn't mean that the law is not there. The law is there. if the government may not be ruling by law domestically, but there is international law. And they will eventually run afoul of international law because they can manipulate internal law, which they do. But then international law kicks in, regional law, institutional law, you know. So a government works by law, and eventually the government, its own law will catch up with it.
Maybe we're seeing a lot of that. And choking the government is choking indeed. Dr. Hines, recently common entrance or we say the national grade 6 results came out. It would look as though we're really doing bad when it comes to educating our children. Almost 50% of them failing at math and English. And as I'm talking about that, let me say I also see a move of the PPP again. Just like they did some argue with the judiciary, they're now trying to stop the council at the University of Ghana. Maximum control again. Your thoughts on those things?
Well, that's what governments do. They want maximum control. So what they're attempting to do at UG is in keeping with the dominance praxis of the government. But I want to talk about education. Education, like health, like infrastructure, they're all things that government has to look over. Government has to manage. And a government has to have priorities. And this government has made it very clear where its priorities are. The priority is infrastructure, right? Infrastructure. We have already made the case that the emphasis on infrastructure is because infrastructure is perhaps the easiest route to illegally and corruptly accumulating wealth. Because if you do infrastructure, as we know, you then have to engage in contracts, and it is through contracts that they're able to funnel money to their constituents, their friends and families, as the politicians call them, and so forth, right? So their emphasis on infrastructure, to the naked eye, people would say, well, infrastructure has always been an issue in countries like ours, and it has impeded development because investors come, they look at your infrastructure, your roads, your electricity, etc., your irrigation, and if that is bad, they're not coming to invest. People are more likely to come to invest when the infrastructure is thing. So there is a justification for improvement of infrastructure. But the government is not really going at improvement of infrastructure, because if you notice the emphasis of the infrastructure is not based on needs. It's not based on needs. The last places, as you open the newspaper every day, they're now 4 years later talking about community roads. Now, if your priority is to improve infrastructure, if infrastructure one is to have your people to be able to move quicker, that is, if the roads in a village are proper, the minibus is able to drop somebody close to their home, the woman going home at night, who is the security guard, instead of having to drop her on the public road and she walking, she get robbed, she get raped. With better roads, you are now able to drop her close to her home. The chances of her being robbed or raped is considerably less. So I am saying, if you're talking about infrastructure, you're asking infrastructure for what? All right? And then you have the big ticket items and so on, the gas to shore and thing. And the people who are the experts on that have already pointed out that that thing is really not financially feasible. All these 4-lane highways, in a country where people are dying like flies on the road, all right? And you're just building 4-lane highways. What goes along with building a 4-lane highway? You now have to regulate traffic better, because these highways are passing through densely populated villages. And people, take, for example, the embankment. In any village, the embankment is a thoroughfare. People, children, old people, I think because that embankment used to be the train state, the railway line that was abandoned 50 years ago. And since then, it has been a community thoroughfare, not even a community road. People sell, children walk, and so on. Now you're building a 4-lane highway there. In the middle of that, you now have to link that to safety. What other safety measures are you putting in place? Note, I'm not saying don't build the 4-lane highway. I'm saying, but you're building the 4-lane highway through a thing. Would it not have been better to build the 4-lane highway at the back of the villages? All right, rather than the railway embankment at the back of the village. There's not. That's where the least. That's where the least human traffic is. People are not, selling and coming out to take a drink and so on. So if you were serious about infrastructure development, you will take into consideration the human effect. Now, you're building a 4-lane highway. You have to, people have to move. People who make a living on that embankment. You go through that embankment right through from Georgetown to Enmore, and people are making a living there. No, you're building that highway and you are moving people because they now have to go and find that they've been making a living there. So again, what I'm saying is that there is no planning. So that's the first thing about infrastructure. It's infrastructure for the sake of infrastructure rather than infrastructure that has to do with development. So the government priority is that you're going for infrastructure because it becomes a means towards the end. The end is to enrich a certain class of people. All right? You're also building it because you're playing on people's weaknesses. A person can come to Guyana from America, for 4 years, and they come and they see plenty road, plenty run by Guyana developing. Because, people live in America and they're accustomed to seeing big and fancy buildings. So when they come home to their country and they see big and fancy buildings, they say, wow, this is development. And so the government is playing on that weakness in our culture. I'm saying all of that to say that there is no other priority. Education is not a priority. And we are not going to get improvement in education if we do not make education a priority. And I am arguing here that, if I or my party, the WPA, had anything to do with government, we would argue strongly that the basis for development, our basis for development would be education, not infrastructure. What do I mean by that? It is not that we won't spend on infrastructure, but we will start our developmental praxis with education. Because we feel that if you educate your society, if you educate your country, and by education, we don't mean just formal education, academic type of education, but education in terms of skills. And that you educate your society and you give your society the skills that are needed in the present political economy. Where is the oil economy going? What are the needs? Do they need accountants? Do they need welders? Do they need builders? And so on. And if that is the case, then you tailor your education to meet the demands. But more than that, your education has to be built on literacy. The more literate the society, the more skillful the society becomes, the more adept people are in terms of moving from one occupation to another occupation, the more people are able to make better decisions, better life decisions, and so forth. So we would make education the basis of the developmental strategy. The government is making infrastructure the basis of their developmental strategy. and not paying attention, because infrastructure does not necessarily lead to improvement in health and improvement in education. But if you start with education, education itself could lead to an improvement in infrastructure, because you are educating your builders, you're educating your craftsmen and women, your artisans. So when they go to do a road, they're doing a road. The government doesn't have to do a road today, and then in 3 months, the road broke up and the thing. You are developing scientists, you're developing people, geologists, and so forth. So education, as the basis of development, can lead to infrastructure improvement. It can lead to health improvement, because the more educated people are, the more they are likely to go to visit the doctor, go to the clinic, etc., etc. The better qualified nurses and doctors we are creating, and so forth. And so therefore, we feel that the government has it wrong. And you can have all the best roads. You can have the best roads, the biggest buildings. But if 50% of your children are dropping out of high school, that's a state of emergency. That is a state of emergency. It means that 50% of your young people are leaving school without the requisite skills that are needed in a petro state, a developed economy. And so therefore, you are fixing the top and leaving the bottom exposed. And so therefore, we have got to reorient, and we, in the WPA, we are going to argue strongly for a reorientation of our developmental strategy. When we propose the cash grant, the cash transfer, first of all, it has to be by law, so that nobody goes around and come and say, I'm giving you some money. You're getting that money by law. At the end of the year, it's in your bank account if you have a bank account. If you don't have a bank account, you get it. It's by law. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it is linked to education, in the sense that we are saying to families, look, for you to qualify next year, you have to show an improvement in school attendance by your children, because now we are giving you this basic income, this guaranteed income. What that means is you now don't have an excuse for sending your child to sell chana and plantain chip during school hours. All right? So it will come with a request of you that you send your children to school. School attendance must improve. Now, with improvement in school attendance, the likelihood of better outcomes at the bottom goes up. We're going to have an health component. We will ask you to send your children to clinic. And once you're sending your children to clinic, then you're able, first of all, for them to be treated if they're sick. Secondly, for them to if they're getting sick, the doctor and the nurses will detect that beforehand. We see children, young people now are dying of diseases that they're picking up at the last moment because they're not going to the doctor. They have to pay. They can't afford it. It's part of the culture sometimes not to go to the doctor. So with that cash transfer, we are linking it to education, linking it to healthcare, and so forth, because education is the basis for development as far as we in the WPA are concerned. If education is the basis for development, it means that our wage strategy would be consistent with our emphasis on education. What that means is that wages for teachers will now become premium, because it's not about giving the teacher something, it's about the teachers becoming integral to the developmental trajectory of the country. And so therefore, if you want your education to be a first world education, you have to pay your teachers better. So the paying of teachers better wages are now part of the overall policy of education as the basis for development. Teachers now become an integral agent of development. And so when you're paying them wages, you're not taking the jack deal thing that they're not producing anything. You now have to say the teachers are primary producers because they are producers of knowledge, they're producers of that educated Guyanese, and so they're actively involved in development. And so you are going to pay them as well as you pay the welder, as well as you pay all other workers. You see? So so education becomes important, and it changes the dynamics of the country. So we are going to, if we have anything to do with government, we're going to change the developmental emphasis from infrastructure. We're going to say education is where we start. An educated society is a society that has the best possible capacity, the best possible potential for development.
And that education, obviously, in my mind, is not just about the academia, but we're talking about the skill sectors we're developing our nation.
Yes, I think I said that. That it's not just about the academic education, it's also about the skills. And it's not just developing skills, it's developing the skills that are part of your developmental strategy. You're in oil and gas. What do you want to do with oil and gas? If you are going to say that, look, we're going to take some of this oil and gas money and we're going to invest it in agriculture, then you need modern agriculturists. So we now have to train agriculturists. We go back to agri-science. I remember when I was a boy going to school in the 1970s with the PNC's Feed, Clothes, and House Yourself. Agri-science, as they call it, it was called a science. Agri-science was integral. We did I think about 6 hours or more of agri-science per week, and because it was towards an objective of feeding ourselves. And even my agri-sci teacher, Mr. Ward, we call him Agri-sci. That was his nickname. I'm giving that to say that your education has to be linked to your developmental priorities. So you're not just educating people for the sake of educating people. You see, a lot of people say, well, we have too many lawyers. And we now see why we have to have many lawyers. I've made the point that, poor people, black people, have always been taken advantage by the law. And it's no accident that black people send their children to study law. It is not an accident. It is not an accident. They know what how the law is important to their own defense. You see, now we are oil and gas industry. We're talking about business law. We're talking about all kinds of law. So the whole thing that we have too many lawyers is now exposed for what it is nonsense. So we have too many doctors. We don't have enough doctors. You see, and so therefore the education has to be geared to the overall developmental strategy of the country. It's the basis for us in the Working People's Alliance. It is the basis for education. Look at yourself, look at myself. Take away education from us. Think about where we would have been today. It take away education from me. What my life would have been, what would have been my choices. Education, for us at that time, however minimal that education was a means of getting out of the logjam that poor people find themselves in. And if we get out, we pull out our family out, some of them, We become an example to others coming up who will want to get an education like we have an education and so on and so forth. So, for the poor, for the powerless, education is a means of social mobility, but more than that, a means of social confidence. Because the more educated you are, the more likely you are to stand up for your rights. The more likely you are to know your rights. The more likely you are to feel confident you're able to speak and talk to anybody anyway and to explain yourself. My thing that sends some people on the PPP side crazy is when I say my auntie sent me to school, because they understand clearly what I am doing there. In saying my auntie sent me to school, is that I am telling the aunties how they send your children to school. And I am saying that if I did not go to school, if I did not get an education, there's some things that I am saying in this society today I would not be permitted to say, given where I come from, given my social origins. I think they have to tolerate people like me and you because we went to school. And so education, quite apart from the overall development in the country, education at the personal level, at the family level, is very important for the confidence of our people, for our people being able to stand up and to assert their identity. The more educated you are, the more you're likely to say, I am black, and who don't like it, go to hell. You see? And so education. That is why I'm saying we in the Working People's Alliance will make education the basis upon which development in Guyana is based.
Devil Sita, let me say something to you. I've been watching you for weeks. You're causing people with education, and so I don't know if you have a problem with education, but I'm serving notice. Understand that I give you a right to express yourself, but if you continue along this line with your foul comments, I'm going to be forced to remove you from the life. Because if you don't believe in education, you have a problem with university graduates and so on, you don't have any right here. Okay, sir? We can be friends, but maybe we will not be friends on this platform if you're going to continue along that line. Good? But education, Dr. Hines, the PPP will argue that they're investing in education and so on, despite all that we're seeing. And I usually argue that don't tell me anything about the education if I'm hungry, because when I'm in the classroom, I can't focus if I'm hungry. And the WP has argued that the things that we can do to address that malady, if I can call it, in the society of people going hungry and not being able to provide the basic needs, if I can call it that. Cash transfer. I see it has raised its head again. The discourses of wrong cash transfer. Not that it had disappeared from the table of the WPA, but I see more people getting involved in the discourses of cash transfer. Is that the new bait for some of these politicians, if I can call it that? Or they have recognized the importance of what the WP has been saying for so long?
We were always correct. It is just that we were ahead of the rest of the elites. Whereas the rest of the elites, their blind spot was this, that if you put money in poor people's hands, they're going to spend it widely, they're going to drink it out, they're going to smoke it out, etc. We in the WPA, we had overcome that judgment of poor people. Probably because we, over time, spend a lot of time in the ranks of poor people. And so in a sense, we overcome it. Because it's a judgment, it's a judgment that the elites make of poor people. They squander, they this, they that, and so on and so forth. And we make that judgment, and that judgment, because we hold power, we are able to take that judgment and to turn it into policy. So if you hold the view that, look, if you give poor people money, they're going to spend it out, they're going to smoke it out. When you are making policy, you will make policy where the government spends all the money. But if you have confidence that your people are going to put that money to uses. You're going to put some of that money so that the people can spend it directly. So prejudices, social prejudices, can become policy. And so the initial response to the cash transfer was really the social prejudice of the middle class, the well-to-do people. What has happened over time, is that this government has beaten up on all of us. They've beaten up on poor people so much that I think over time, the suspicions of the middle class, the judgment that they made on poor people, they have tempered that judgment. And so more and more of them are now coming around to recognizing the wisdom in the cash transfer, and are embracing it in one form or the other. The government is bastardizing cash transfers. What they're doing is not cash transfers in the classical sense, in the sense that we in the WPA propose it. They're doing cash handouts so that you go around the place and you give people a couple $100,000 if they're black. You give some Indian people a little bit more than you give. You give Amerindians probably the least, and so on. And so you're going around and saying the government is giving you a gift. For us, cash transfer is not a gift, it's a right. Very important difference. It's a right, it's not a gift from government. It's a right. The right to live, the right to have a decent wage and to have a decent living. No. When you give cash transfers to the citizens of this country, and you do it by law, so it goes to the National Assembly, it's passed by law, it's by law. So no government going around the place and giving it, it's done by law. That's one. Two, it is linked, as I explained before, it's linked to health, it's linked to education. That's two. Three, once people begin to get that cash transfer, they get that what you call universal basic income. It's a basic income, which means when the worker goes into the workforce, he or she has a base of wage. They're going to demand more wage than they're getting in the cash transfer. You are not going to work for less than you're getting in the cash transfer. So the worker now has a bargaining tool, whether they're in the private sector or the public sector, because the cash transfer is what we call a basic income. And so when they go, people say, well, if you give them, they won't go and work. No, they will go and work, but they will demand more. That is the key there. That is the key there. You see? So it's a win-win for poor people. If you are talking about beating out poverty, because our objective in the Working People's Alliance, and we are saying it should be the objective of any government in this country, is to defeat poverty at the very least. Poverty is a holdover from slavery and colonialism and indentureship. And it's a scourge. It is what stands between a person assuming their full humanity and becoming subservient. Because when you're in poverty, you have to beg people. You have to do things that you would not normally do. Our women have to, I don't have to say it. I don't even want to go there because that makes you cry sometimes. What our young women, our young boys now have to do. In the old days, we talk about sexual exploitation of young girls. Now it's young boys and so on. Poverty makes you do shit because you have to survive. Poverty makes some black people hold their nose and go to the PPP and beg for a small piece. You see? So, if we eradicate poverty, we give our citizens the opportunity to become full and dignified human beings. And so for us in the Working People's Alliance, this is about the eradication of the scourge of poverty. The scourge of poverty. It will release our women from having to depend on the exploitation of a man for small piece. and so forth. It frees up the citizenry. And so therefore this is about the eradication of the scourge of poverty, to free up our human beings, to free up our citizens as human beings, to take away the shame of poverty. And so, yes, the cash transfers are not going around the place and giving money. And we are not waiting until we get into government. If this government can give cash transfer tomorrow, we will applaud them. But we will applaud them last. We have to applaud ourselves first, because we are the ones who have raised it. We are the ones who have fought for it. And the government will, if they do it, they will do it because we made them do it. And so we are not waiting until we get into government to implement the cash transfer. We want to get into government to do it the right way. But if this government were to do it the right way tomorrow, and they may not give $1 million as we think, they may give $500,000, we will say it is the right way to go, but we will not give them credit. We will say, yes, clap, clap. Clap, clap for doing what we suggested should be done. So that is why we are making the point that politics is not about waiting until there are things that can be done now to bring relief to our people. And we are saying what the government is doing is they're using these cash grants in order to further dominate our people, to further pauperize our people, to further diminish the confidence of our people, because our people feel that they have to beg them. And, thank God for this $45,000. They got parading big black women, big people. Oh, thank the government for this $45,000. I'm going to buy my children uniform. And when I see that, I want to vomit, not because of what the people are saying, because our people are grateful. It is what the government is getting black citizens to do. They're not taking Indian women and parade them and say thank for the father. It's mostly black women, and it's an assault on black womanhood. So they're using these cash grants to really diminish the dignity of our people. The dignity of our people. And that is why, like I said, every time they take race off the table, I'm putting it back. Because racists don't like you talk about race. And that's what they're doing. And we are saying we have to let those people know that, yes, $45,000 is what, $45,000 that you didn't have. But we have a proposal on the table where you get $1 million. And $1 million, you buy border uniform, you repair your home. You might have gotten the land, pay for the land, but you don't get money to start the house. You can start it. You have a small business selling things at the corner street. You can expand that business because you have some money now, some disposable money that you can inject into your small business. And so we have to educate our people. And educating our people, we are really disarming the government.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. I always say there are lots of people what do I say? Listen to respond, not listen to understand. This woman, never see tell with his ignorance. Miranda Brown has joined the clique again with her ignorance, asking the question or saying there is no universal basic, in no country in the world has universal basic income. Where's the tested implementation around the world? There's an article on the screen as you speak, Dr. Hines. It was right up there with you while you spoke. It's an article from The Guardian, dated Sunday, the 14th July. It says, money for nothing. Is universal basic income about to transform society? I recommend it to readers. It's a long read, but I want to read the first three or so paragraphs. When Eleanor O'Donovan found out she had been randomly selected to participate in a basic income pilot scheme, she couldn't believe her luck. In return for a guaranteed salary of just over Euro 1,400, British pound 1,200, a month from the Irish government, all the 27-year-old artist had to do was fill out a biannual questionnaire about her well-being and how she spent her time. Quote, it was like winning the lottery. I was in such disbelief, end quote, she says. The income which she will receive until September 2025 has enabled her to give up tempting and focus instead on her art. Quote, it covers my living expenses, my rent, food, and day-to-day stuff, end quote. The concept of a guaranteed basic income might seem novel or neoteric, but it dates back to 1795, when the American founding father, Thomas Paine, suggested a, quote, national fund, end quote, should pay every adult, quote, rich or poor, end quote, a, quote, ground rent of £10 a year until the age of 50. Earth is, quote, the common property of the human race, end quote, he argued. So everyone has been collectively dispossessed by, quote, the introduction of the system of landed property, end quote, and was entitled to compensation. Today, as artificial intelligence, AI learns from the collective intellectual and creative output of humans and uses this to dispossess workers of their livelihoods. The idea of universal basic income as a possible solution is gaining traction. Quote, we are seeing the most disruptive force in history, end quote, Tesla founder and ex-formerly Twitter owner Elon Musk said last year before speculating. Open quote, there will come a point where no job is needed. You can have a job if you want one for personal satisfaction, but AI will do everything, end of quote. The counter-argument is that although AI could replace a range of jobs, it will also create new roles, including oversight of AI decision-making known as human in the loop. Yet for many workers, the advance of AI continues to be alarming. In March, after analyzing 22,000 tasks in the UK covering every type of job, a model created by the Institute for Public Policy Research predicted that 59% of tasks currently done by humans, particularly women and young people, could be affected by AI in the next 3 to 5 years. In worst case scenario, this would trigger a jobs apocalypse, where 8 million people lose their jobs in the UK alone. UBI will provide a vital safety net. I'll stop there. It's a long read, like I said. I recommend it for viewers. It's in the Guardian. Of course, you can find it online. It's dated Sunday, the 14th of July. The lines, Dr. Hines, unless you have a comment, the lines are
No, I
open.
just want to reinforce what you said, is that universal basic income has been around in one form or the other from as far back as you said in the 18th century. And in recent times, from the 1980s, you go across Latin America, they are probably the most successful when it comes to the universal basic income. Brazil has a very attractive program. The United States itself, in what I'm trying to remember the state, Texas has universal basic income in some areas. Alaska has probably the most active universal basic income. There are parts of California that have it. Africa, Asia, the UN has just done a study in the Eastern Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean islands, to see how feasible it is. Jamaica has an instance of it. Prime Minister Motley has adopted it in principle. So it's not a new phenomenon. It's been around for a long time, both in its old manifestation and in its more recent manifestation. It is just that one of the things with us in Guyana is our politics are so intense, and we get so embroiled in our politics, understandably so, that sometimes we are not aware of what's happening around the world. So I would excuse Miranda for not knowing that universal basic income is now at the cutting edge of human development in the world. I excuse him or her because that's what Guyana does to us. It gets us into an island, and we forget that we are part of a larger world.
Thank you. Evan Sital, I don't have to put up with your insults.
I don't think you should worry Neville Seaton. He's on my program. He's challenged.
Yeah, I was about to say the man sounds like a madman. I ain't gonna I
Yeah,
know me decent. He sounds
you
like a
know, I
madman.
mean,
And this is certainly not the show for madness. Let you go take it up with Adi them that take away the land.
yeah, you know, I mean,
The lines are opened.
I'm begging for him, you know.
Don't beg for him. Let you go cuss in front of Ali House, man. The lines are open.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
The lines are open. Call your life.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam, and good morning, Dr. Hines. Good morning to all Guyanese and everyone in the Guyanese diaspora. You know, universal suffrage, and the British had something to offset suffering and depression. They have the dole. They currently have that. Holland has theirs. United States has the welfare system and public housing. So these are all things to offset. During COVID, they had government assistance to offset. So, you know, these things are necessary. These things are currently necessary. So it's a foregone conclusion that the government needs to assist when it's necessary. And it's obviously necessary in Guyana, given the conditions of a 6.5 economy. Dr. Hines, you know, I want to talk to you about the consensus issue, because you've raised it quite a few times. I haven't been able to, but I wanted some clarity on what you have been saying. So I'm going to phrase this first question for three parts, three separate questions. The first one, Dr. Hines, has to do with consensus. And I want to use the American example, because America pumps a lot of democracy for Guyana. So that's the correlation. Now, Joe Biden's Democratic Party won the 2020 election over the Republican Party, Donald Trump's, by 7 million votes. Now, in the context of a consensus, in 2020, the consensus was clear by the votes. Recently, about last week, the Congress met, the Democratic Congress met, most of them, to decide whether or not Biden should continue to run because of how he was performing in his last debate. And they came out unanimously saying, not majority, but unanimously saying, that he has the mandate. President Biden says, look, I have the mandate. The people gave me the mandate by vote. So I'm trying to juxtapose the vote versus a consensus. That's the first question. Second question, Dr. Hines, has to do with, could you kindly explain for the viewing audience, and a lot of people in my core group, and particularly myself, wanted to know how it became possible for the PNC candidate in the 2020 elections to gain control of the list. How did President David Arthur gain control over that list over Ramzatan of the AFC and other parties? That's my second question, Dr. Hines. My last and third final question is, do you, Dr. Hines, after campaigning on this show for 4 years or 3 years, consider to give Comrade Leader Norton your vote for the candidacy of president? That's my last question. Thank you for accepting the questions. If you need for me to repeat them, I can.
No, I took notes, which I don't usually do, but you know, since there are more than one question, I've taken notes. So I've got them.
Your responses.
Yes. The first question about consensus arises from what you want to achieve. There are various constituencies that the opposition wants to appeal to win an election. You have to appeal to your own base. And your own base is not a monolithic base. Your base is made up of different classes, the people of different ideological persuasion. So black people are not a monolith. There's the black middle class, which has a view of the world that is in some ways different from the way the black working class see the world. And then even the black working class and the black middle class, there are some of us who are what we may call more militant, some of us who are who take our racial identity serious, some of us who do not believe in just reform, we believe in transformation in society. And so therefore, even though we are all working class or we are all middle class, we are ideologically different. Then you have the Amerindians and East Indians, other races of people, other ethnic groups that we want to appeal to in able to win. Then we have the external forces. I mean, for all intents and purposes, whether we like it or not, the external forces, the ABC, Country, Exxon, all those people, they play as integral a role to our political outcomes. As we do in our country, that's a fact. We would not necessarily want it to be like that, but that's a fact. And so we you know, an opposition trying to win an election and the PPP trying to win the election, they're appealing to all of those publics. You're appealing to your own base. You're appealing to the base of the opposite group. You're appealing to the diversity of your base within. You're appealing to the global forces. And so therefore, when you are talking about a consensus candidate, you're talking about somebody who is going to be able to simultaneously appeal to all those publics, or most of those publics. Somebody who's going to be able to draw the radicals, whether you call them the black radicals, black nationalists, somebody's going to be able to draw the red-skinned middle class people, somebody who's going to draw the working class people, somebody who's going to be attractive to those Indians who are persuaded to at least give us a look in or to move over. So, somebody who's going to be able to appeal to the Amerindians, because we get about 40% of the Amerindian votes in the last couple of elections. We want to get that up to 50. Somebody's going to appeal there. And then very importantly, someone who is going to not make the external forces nervous. We're not going to make the Americans nervous. We're not going to make Exxon nervous. We're going to. So when we talk about a consensus candidate, is somebody who can simultaneously appeal to all or most of those publics, those constituencies. And it's on that basis that one talks about a consensus candidate. That is a candidate who can maximize our potential to win. Now, even as I say that, there are some stark realities. Our parties are not even. We are not even. The PNC, sorry, is far and away the largest party. And by the largest party, it's not just people who are members, but the capacity of the party to mobilize people. And the PNC is far and away the largest party. It has a structure, it has an apparatus, it has a machine that it can put in place. And so it is the largest party. And if you're going by data, because it is the largest party, whenever it has a contested election on its own, it has gotten more votes than the rest of us. So it is the largest party, all right? Now, if you're the largest party, then you have the first shot, or you have the biggest shot. You have not only the power and the ability to propose, you have the power and the ability to frustrate, because if you are doing an opposition initiative and the PNC wants to frustrate it, they can frustrate it. They can go in the communities and tell their people don't cooperate. So let's say we're calling a big march and thing, and the PNC is not part of and the PNC is not part of that march. We don't have their organizing skills. We don't have their skills of their resources. We don't have their influence. They can tell their people stay away from them because they're carrying you all on the road to march so that you're all going to get beat up and so on and so forth. And then when the PPP look and they don't see the PNC in this big march, they're going to say, we can bust their ass because the one with the big voice is outside. So there's some practical reasons that you have to deal with when you're talking about the consensus candidate. The big party has to be there. Now, you may have a candidate like a Nigel Hughes. Nigel does not come from the big party. He's from the middle class, right? And the middle class in Guyanese and Caribbean politics has always held sway. When they are not the biggie themselves, they're able to influence the biggie. And there is still part of our political culture that gives way to what Lloyd Best called the doctor politics, meaning the politics of the educated middle class. We still feel that they are better at leading, all right? Not that they're better, because I think a lot of working class people have problems with middle class people. But I think there is still part of our culture that when it comes to leading, they're better. They're not going to make the outsiders angry. They bring resources. They bring resources both in terms of economic resources, but also skills and so on. And so the part of the culture is that we are safer with the middle class. And so while Nigeria does not belong to a big party, he brings that, the whole notion that you're safer. They're less likely to take advantage of Nigel Hughes than they would do of a David Hinds or Aubrey Norton. They're less likely to shame them in a way that they will shame Aubrey and shame me. So our people, in a sense, make that compromise with the middle class. And it is not as strong as it used to be 40 years ago, 50, but it is still there. It is still there. So the question is, which of, since they're the two leading candidates, which of these two candidates can speak simultaneously to all of the constituencies? And I just gave a few of the constituencies there. I say the average Black working class, the Black middle class, the Black radicals, militant type who believe in transformation rather than reform, who may even be talking about revolution. Those are publics within. Then within that you have young people, young Black people, young Indian people, young Amerindian people, who themselves, independently of race and class, they're young people. They think, how do you speak to them? Because they, as young people, have questions, they have priorities, they have needs. And then, like I said, you have the East Indian constituency. You have the East Indian business constituency, because they have money and they can break up anything by just withdrawing their money from the system, just as the coalition government when they came in the last time. You have Amerindians, you have Portuguese, and then you have the foreigners. Which of these two candidates is the one that can simultaneously speak to all of those publics? That is the question when we talk about a consensus candidate. But it's not just speaking to the public. At the end of the day, if you want to win, you got to win with your base. You have to start with your base. You may be able to speak to the white people. You may be able to speak to Indians, Amerindians, Portuguese. You may be able to speak to young people. But if you're not able to connect with the core of your base, which is the core of Black people, who is your base as opposition, then you're not doing it. And so therefore, are you able to speak to all of the constituencies and carry your base at the same time? And so when one is talking about a consensus, one has to talk about all of those factors. Will Norton's candidacy drive away some voters? Will Nigel's candidacy drive away some voters? Nigel may bring the middle class. He may appeal to them. He may appeal to maybe the foreigners. But would he then drive away some of the core of the base? Aubrey may speak to the core of the base. He embodies their dreams, their aspirations. But in the process of doing so, would he frighten the foreigners? All right, would he frighten Exxon? These are all questions one has to put on the table and one has to answer when you're talking about a consensus candidate. So I hope that explains for Coffee and the rest of us. In terms of the leader of the list, Coffee, I'm very glad you asked that question. The leader of the list in 2000, after the 2015 election, was not a party member. It wasn't from the PNC, the AFC, and W. It was Professor Lutchman. And that was deliberate because we didn't want any of the party to have control over recalling parliamentarians. And so we sought an independent leader of the list in Professor Lutchman. So that if you needed to recall, you had to go to Lutchman, an independent person. What the PNC did, the PNC under Granger, when it came to 2020, they realized that that was a power that was not in their hands. And they manipulated the system to take away the independent leader of the list and put it in the hands of the leader of the PNC. And that is how great. It was a manipulation. It was a walking back of the original decision that none of us should be the leader of the list, that the leader of the list should be an independent person, Professor Harold Lutchman. And the PNC maneuvered it, take it away from things. It's part of the big party story. You know, we are the big party. We are not satisfied with getting the most seats in parliament, the most ministers. We now want to have control of the list. And so that's how the control of this was given to Granger. So even though Granger is not the leader of the PNC, he's retired from politics, he still controls who's in parliament, which is undemocratic, which is immoral, politically immoral, and it's a case of political selfishness, you know? But that is the way it is. Coffee, I hope I've been able to give you that information. And what's the last question? I think it has to do with I can't remember.
If you will give your support to Aubrey Norton.
Oh, if I will give, I have said very publicly that I am prepared to work with Aubrey Norton if he's the presidential candidate. I'm prepared to work under him. I don't see any I don't think he's less qualified than Nigel Hughes or anybody else. He is as qualified as Nigel or anyone else to be president of Guyana. And if he becomes the consensus candidate, I am prepared to work with him, to work under him. If Nigel becomes the presidential candidate, I think Nigel is as qualified as any of the candidates. I am prepared to work under Nigel. I'm prepared to work with Nigel. So whether it's Nigel, whether it's Aubrey, or if another suitable candidate puts his or her hat in the ring, I am prepared to work as part of a team and to work under their leadership. I have no qualms about that. I Think Aubrey Norton is as qualified as any candidate to be the president of this country. Those who point to his social origins are just being plainly nostalgic for days of the old. I think while we still are anchored somewhat in the politics of respectability and politics of the doctor politics and so on, I think we are slowly making a transition, and we ought to make a transition. If you look at the other side, I mean, with all due respect to President Ali, I mean, if the other side can make President Ali presidential, why the hell are we saying that North is not presidential? If the other side can, And I don't mean to cast aspersions on President Ali, but when you line up Irfan Ali next to Aubrey Norton, they both come from the same social background. But Norton is way away 10 times, 100 times more qualified. I'm using that word in a broad sense. Norton is much more prepared. Norton has much more of a profile to be the president of the country than Irfan Ali. And if the other side can make Irfan Ali, I don't say that we should do as the other side. And you know what we used to say, for Crapo come out and say there's PPP who vote for him and so on and so forth. I'm not advocating that, because I don't want to say for Crapo come out and say I as the PNC leader we must vote for him. I would not at all preach that to our people. I think we should always look at our leaders to have the kind of worldview, the kind of vision that for me is what qualifies you. Your worldview, your vision, your empathy, your empathy for your people, your understanding of the world and the place of your country in the world, your ability to deal with complex issues all at the same time. Those are things that qualify you, anybody, to be a president of Guyana. And I'm saying, when you look at Irfan Ali, he doesn't tick many of those boxes. Some people argue that he ticks none of those boxes. And when you look at Norton, Norton ticks almost all, if not all, certainly most of those boxes. And so, yes, he's eminently qualified to be presidential candidate and president, and I'm prepared to work with him or work on him.
I was tempted to ask a question that will start another program, but I can't do that now because it is 6 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. Somebody said it looks as though Neville Sital has something personal with me. Neville could see me on the road and tell me what personal. We could talk about it as men on the road. He seems to think I'm hiding or running from something. I don't hide and run from people. I got sense. I smart. I got value for my life. They say show me a company, I tell you who you are. So don't tell me where you just did 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. Really and truly, they don't bother me. Old people say whores and thieves just be on the street after certain hours in the night. So which one are you? A whore or a thief? The time is 5 minutes in the 9 o'clock hour. Now, guys, basically we're gonna wrap up because I got a pressing matters. And so I can't go into the 9:30 and 9:45 that we do sometimes. There are no voice notes that I've seen. So you want to proceed and wrap up if you haven't wrapped up as yet?
Well, I've wrapped up already. I think I thought so much it would be cruel of me to talk more.
Good, very well. So the time is now 5 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. You're tuned to the Guyanese morning time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. Let me remind you of some of the things which will happen. Maybe Dr. Hines, you can chip in here. Coming down to the end of the month, the 1st of August movement on the 31st of July will host its annual libation ceremony on Company Road in front of the marketplace. That starts about 5, and it will go into the evening. And then from about 8 o'clock on the Buxton line top proper, you're going to have the Black is Beautiful cultural evening, all sponsored by the 1st of August movement and friends. And then on the 1st of...
Before that, we have the church service.
Oh, yes. The church service is on Sunday.
Sunday the 28th.
Sunday the 28th. Right, so Sunday the 28th, there is the annual church service. With the 1st of August collaborates with the church in the community to host. And this year it's going to be at Company Road. Brother Terry Church is
Pastor Terry's church.
Pastor Terry's church.
Christ Ambassadors, I don't...
Yes, Ambassador of Christ, I think.
Ambassador
Church
of Christ,
Company
yes.
Road. It's right there around the Ogle Street area, obliquely opposite the garment factory. Right, so...
it's a 10 o'clock service. So we are hoping that people can go worship at their churches. You know, Anglican, they start their service at 6:30. And so you can go to your early Anglican service. We hope the traditional churches will do an early service on that day so that people can finish there and go to the emancipation service starting at 10 o'clock at Pastor Terry's church.
Good, very well. And then on the 1st of August, after the libation and cultural evening on the 31st of July, the 1st of August, there's the Elders Soiree. The Elders Soiree is going to take place right here at Club Twilight. Let me tell you the cultural evening. Yoruba singers will be on stage. And then when we come to the Elders Soiree, Super Cat is going to be providing musical entertainment for the elders. Like it suggests, it's the Elder Soiree. It's traditional to some extent because it's what we did in the past. We always used to bring the village elders, the older folks in the community, to one place. At one time, it was Studio 35, then it was Lessons Place, and Dr. Hines, I'm sure, can tell you about the places where it has been.
Before then, it was County High School.
Before then, it was County High School. And they used to come together.
And that's where we share the food and the conky and so on, you know. You know, it's where people come out and have a good time. It's our version of, you know, the in Georgetown, you know, act as the folk festival. It's our version, so people can go to town, take in some of the folk festival, come back to the village, or they can come to, because we start at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, they can come there and then leave and go to town. Some people may choose not to go to town and stay. And when we say big people soiree, we are 40 and 40 and 40 and so you know, it's not just a 70-year-olds, right? It's basically, you know, when we say big people, it's really the line top thing on the night is for the little children and for everybody on the 31st. But on the 1st, it's big people, and big people, we can flex with that, you know, 30 something party, you know.
Very well. And let me remind you that on the night of the 31st of July, you're going to get, once again, like we did last year, Granny Home Style Mixed Meat Cook-Up is going to be on sale. Listen out for the information. You're going to know the 10th color and how to identify where Granny Home Style Cook-Up is and so on, right? Good.
Before you do Granny Home Style Cook-Up on the 4th.
Just out of
on the 4th of
just out of
August.
times. Just out of times. And I'm saying to you, last year, a lot of people were disappointed, while others were happy. They were jubilant. They enjoyed the cook-up. So if you know you want cook-up this year and you don't want to run the risk of being disappointed, you can pre-order, right? Send your orders, and so we will cater for you in a special pot, perhaps. Dr. Hines, go ahead.
That's what you call an entrepreneur. On the 4th of August, we're going to have the annual EUC Guayana symposium. That's usually our big symposium at Tipperary Hall. We are finalizing the speakers. On the night of the 31st, our main speakers are going to be Nigel Hughes, our main speaker. We'll have appearances by opposition leader Aubrey Norton, and you will have myself would be also a speaker. So our three main speakers are going to be Nigel Hughes, Aubrey Norton, David Hines as the speakers on the 31st. As I said, on the 4th, we'll have the Emancipation, UC Guyanese Emancipation Symposium. We are finalizing the speakers. We'll let you know that in thing. And then on the 25th, we're going to bring down the curtains on the celebrations with a business expo, where we will have people from the village, particularly young people who have small businesses, to come and to showcase their products and to encourage business networking and selling their products, etc., etc. So it's a way of encouraging people to get into business and to set up business networks, etc. We are going to launch an essay competition and a poetry competition. We're going to launch that in August, but it will be administered when the children come back to school in September. So we launch it, but we wait until the children come back because we'll have three categories: primary school, secondary school, and post-secondary. Post-secondary categories. So we thought it would be best to administer it when the children are back in school, but we will launch it in August. So that's our program of events. It's broadened, and of course, Politics 101 will launch its Emancipation Fund because we have a big budget. And usually we ask for donations to offset the expenses. So this evening we're going to launch the Politics 101 Emancipation Fund. Last year we were able to, we got enough that we were able to contribute to the Buxton thing. We were able to contribute to Belladrum, and we were able to contribute to Coffee 250's annual conference. So we launched our fund, the Emancipation Fund, tonight on Politics 101. And here is hoping that you can contribute. You can contribute right now. You don't have to wait until tonight, so that we can ensure we're not depending on other people to fund our events. Because as you notice what they're doing, they're trying to undermine ACDA because they're saying, ACDA, you have to pay to go in, and they're holding just next door to ACDA thing. The PPP is getting some stupid black people to hold a free concert. And we are saying that we in Buxton not allowing that shit to happen, and giving them notice. Don't come to Buxton with that shit because it's not gonna fly. It's not gonna fly. That Buxton is liberated territory. Don't come there with your shit. All right? And as I said, the way to make sure that they don't come there with their shit is that we have to finance our own thing. So we'll be launching our fund to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. And like I said, it's time. I see Flash Gordon is protesting, or somebody's protesting for Flash Gordon, saying I don't want him to speak this morning and so on. Listen, the reality is sometimes the information is so much, the discussion is so in depth that there's no room. But we always have Free Talk Friday. Tomorrow is Thursday also, right? Okay. You can get to talk tomorrow or Friday. Good. Stop complaining. Stop whining. That's the word. Well, listen, some of y'all is complaining about it. I don't know why y'all is complaining. Anyways, it's time for me to go. Tomorrow is Thursday. It's karaoke at Club Twilight. Come on down. Have a good time. I can see that the karaoke sessions here have been growing and people are having fun. It is becoming more and more of a hit in the neighborhood. So come on down and be a part of the fun, right? Y'all have fun. Be safe. Y'all could pray for your friend Neville. Really and truly, I don't have the energy to deal with idiocy certain hours of the day. Today is not one of the days. I'm lucky yet because I'm going to give you a chance, right? One of the things people take for granted, people believe that they can come into your space, let me call it that. You provide a platform for them to get an opportunity to express themselves, and they think that they can use that opportunity to insult you and attack you, and you are not human, so you must just sit back and accept it. I don't have to accept it, right? I don't have to. I permit it perhaps for a while and give people the opportunity to, sort themselves out. But I don't have to accept it. And if that continues, I certainly will not be accepting it. A lot of Miranda Brown friends have found out that, I just give, as old people say, just give them a rope to jog their own neck. And so when I think that rope has reached its end, I can just joke it. Good. Y'all have a good day. Bye bye. See you later. Much love. Talk to you tomorrow.